Joe Biden is our nominee. Dems return to the Hill and rally around the president. I saw a couple things out there. I saw Cenk Uygur posting and some other people saying that, these Democrats don't represent us and all this kind of stuff. But I haven't really seen them talk about it or anyone discuss it yet. So that's what this video is here. Another MSNBC video, this time from Good Morning Joe. Joe Biden is our nominee. Dems return to the Hill and rally around the president. Let's see what they have to say about this.
There's the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, which is reaffirming its support behind President Biden, though some caucus members have either called for Biden to drop out of the race or have said they are concerned. The caucus as a whole released a statement that reads in part, quote, "We stand with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. For the last year and a half, the Biden-Harris administration partnered with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus initiative to take the CHC on the road. Through that initiative, we have worked to empower Latino communities across the country."
Yeah. We support Joe Biden. Okay, but, how much sway do they really? Well, you know what? I guess they might actually have some sway, open borders and all that.
A meeting between Biden and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus is reportedly in the works, though no word yet on when it is supposed to take place. A meeting did take place last night between Biden and members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Biden spoke with the group virtually for about 20 minutes and touched on issues such as uplifting Black America and growing wealth, housing, and taxing the ultra-wealthy. Members reassured Biden they still support him amid his debate fallout. Here's how CBC Chair Congressman Stephen Horsford described the meeting.
I can't imagine, I couldn't imagine being a Black person and then having all these clips of Joe Biden saying things like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black, obviously taking you for granted. Poor kids are just as smart as white kids. All of the different things that Joe Biden had said over the years. I can't imagine being a Black person and thinking Joe Biden has my best interests at heart, or the Democratic Party for that matter. But somehow he keeps getting everybody's vote. So let's go ahead and see what their reporting is on this meeting.
President was clear that he is in this race to win. We have one objective, and that is to win. And this president is fit and prepared to continue to serve. He's civil and he's experienced. The opposite side offers us nothing but chaos and extremism. To be clear, President Biden is our nominee. The Vice President Kamala Harris is his running mate. They are the team that will ensure that we move America forward, and there will be no other nominee.
That's pretty strong words.
And President Biden.
Okay, and later this morning.
Yeah, I thought he was finished there. Those are pretty strong words there. I don't know that, it's been said for a long time that if the Democrats were ever to lose even a sizable fraction of the Black vote, that they would lose, every other race after that. But they say that the same thing about, college kids. They say the same thing about women. They say all the, I've heard it for every group. But strong words coming from him, because if he's the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus and he's out here saying that we support Joe and Kamala and that's it, even if Kamala replaced it, if I'm Joe Biden, I'm thinking, they're in my corner. Everybody's in my corner right now. I'm not backing down. Look at this. You're saying that I'm losing all this stuff, but here are all these people now coming out and supporting me. Maybe that's part of the spin.
Morning, House Democrats are set to hold a caucus-wide meeting. Here's some of what key leaders and members are saying about Biden's candidacy ahead of the gathering.
I made clear publicly the day after the debate that I support President Joe Biden and the Democratic ticket. My position has not changed.
But that's Biden and the Democratic ticket. Do you support Biden on the ticket or just Biden and whatever the ticket is?
Same answer.
Same answer. Okay. I feel like all these people are just positioning themselves. For Gavin Newsom, for instance, right after the debate, he was trying to spin it, and he was trying to talk about how great Biden did and how awesome everything was. And they, then the pivot, Donald Trump lied so many times. Then they tried to blame it on the moderators of the debate because they didn't fact check Trump and all this kind of stuff. And then, we're not going to judge, 52 years of service over a 90-minute debate. All this is positioning. I think people like Hakeem Jeffries and Gavin Newsom and anyone else that we're about to see in this video, I think that they're reading the tea leaves and it's saying, Joe Biden's not going anywhere. And so with that in mind, what is the proper political move? Is the proper political move to say, well, Joe Biden's terrible? Maybe. If you can say Joe Biden is terrible and should be removed from the ticket, he's going to remain on the ticket and he loses, then you come out on top. But I think what Hakeem Jeffries and Gavin Newsom and everybody else are positioning themselves to be in is in a position where first, if Joe Biden wins, then they get to say, we were right, they were wrong, we deserve the cabinet positions, we deserve the lucrative deal, or whatever it is. We'll give 10% to the big guy, just put us on the team, coach, stuff like that. But also, even if Joe Biden loses, they still get to come out and say, look, I'm for the party, I support the party, I support our candidate, no matter who it is and no matter what their chances are, because I believe that this party has the best mission and the best vision for the country. So I think Hakeem Jeffries and Gavin Newsom and, again, whoever else comes out this way, I think they're making that calculation that, what are the pros and cons if I say he's good or bad or should be replaced or not? And what does it mean for me on the other side of it? I think that's what's going on here.
Listen, we have a great president. He has a great record working with us, a great record of achievement. And I'm hopeful that he will be the next president of the United States.
For Nancy Pelosi, first of all, she's a party first person. But also, she's like, he's just like me. If you're saying he has to go, then I have to go. I don't want to go.
I have spoken to the president over the weekend. I have spoken with him extensively. Mm-hmm. He made clear then, and he has made clear since, that he is in this race. The matter is closed. He had reiterated that this morning. He has reiterated that to the public. Joe Biden is our nominee. He is not leaving this race. He is in this race, and I support him.
Again, political calculation there. Cenk Uygur was pissed that she would come out in support of Joe Biden. And she said, and he was saying things like, we sent you, meaning progressives, we sent you there to hold these people to account and to saber rattle or whatever he said. And instead, you're kissing his boots. So, people were pissed about that. But again, I think it's all political calculation. They weighed the pros and cons and they made their decision.
I really do believe that the more members of our caucus who speak directly to him, the more confident they will feel. So I've encouraged the White House to make sure that the president does as much outreach as possible, or not the White House, but the campaign, that the president does as much outreach as possible.
And while she's sitting in those meetings, he says, listen, I don't care what they say. This is going to be the most fortified election you've ever seen. We're gonna stomp Donald Trump. You watch. I beat him once, and I'll beat him again. That's the conversation, I bet.
Listen, I'm not here to give advice to my colleagues. They all have independent districts and things that they feel like they have to do. I do think that we should continue to have whatever conversations we need to have with our constituents, with our colleagues. We should have them in private.
Well, and Sam Stein, that the last comment may have sounded, like she didn't want to answer the question or try to have it both ways. But that is politics. And that's the thing that hit me this weekend when people said, oh, the House Democrats are going to go back and they're going to push Joe Biden out. I was... last week, I think I've said here, a couple places, I was driving, my car window's down, and,
this is
Democrats
painful.
yell, hey, take it easy on Biden, Joe. And you look on Twitter, which has been a hotbed of angry far-right reactionaryism over the past 5 years or so. It's changed, man. There are some angry Democrats out there. So all of that anecdotal, but I found in politics from a very early age, enough anecdotes usually leads to pretty good data eventually. And I was just thinking about those House members. What are they hearing from their constituents? Chances are good they've got a lot of pissed off constituents saying, be loyal to the president of the United States. And perhaps that may be why we're seeing more House Democrats freeze. What have you heard in your reporting?
I'm not buying that. Like I said, I think it's all political calculation, and they're going to try to pivot, and they're going to say, look, it's the most important election of our lifetimes. We have to support our candidate because otherwise we get fascism and the end of democracy and all that kind of stuff. It has nothing to do with that.
Same thing. And you're right. It's anecdotal, but eventually those anecdotes pile up to become something close to empirical, right? And, I talked to one House Democrat, I remember, who went home over the July 4th break. He said he had, of all the conversations he had with voters there, Democratic voters, it was something like an 80-20 split of people who really thought Biden was getting an unfair shake here and should not be pushed out of the race. More importantly, of the 80%, predominantly African-American women. And as you know, that is the bedrock constituency with the party. It is notable that not a single member of the CBC has said anything about Biden leaving the race, nor does it seem like they're going to. It's maybe more notable, I think, that you have some of the progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming out and saying they want to see Biden stick it out. I mean, he does not have much credibility among progressives, right? They've been incredibly disheartened with his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. For some of them to come out and say, look, stick with this guy, that is a huge help for him going forward.
It's a huge help for him going forward because it kind of bolsters the ranks and stuff. But I wonder, how much of this is just Joe Biden's refusing to step down. So love him or hate him, it's him or Trump. And there's got to be an aspect to that as well. So I think it's those two things. I think it's political gamesmanship, trying to see what they can get on the other side of this, what their position can be, and how they can move forward in a positive direction for themselves. But then also coming to the realization that this old man ain't going anywhere. Unless he drops dead, we're stuck with him. So we got to make that case. Otherwise, we're screwed too.
Doesn't mean he's in the clear. I think we're all very cognizant that, there's incredible pressure on him to prove that he has what it takes to bring the fight to Trump. There's going to be a lot of eyes on that Thursday press conference. Just the timing of it is incredible. But if you're the Biden folks, this has gone about as well, the last 2 days, I would say, has gone about as well as you probably could have hoped, right? You've more or less called the party's bluff. You've made the outreach, and you've seen the most important lawmakers that you need say, stick with Joe.
Yeah, we're going to get to Richard Haas in a second, who has
a
decidedly different point of view than our own Mika Brzezinski. But, Gene, I want to circle back to you for a second. Yeah. And again, I want to talk parallels. Mm-hmm. This is the same, for different reasons, but this is where Joe Biden was in 2020.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. People say, get out of the race. You're terrible at this. You're too old. You're out of it. You can't win. How many times have we heard Joe Biden can't win? You can't win. He's going to have to step aside after 22. And again, there are people out there that are saying, because I get the emails. I'm just stating facts here. I'm not saying what ought to be. I'm saying what is. And Gene, that's how it was in 2020. And then Jim Clyburn. And as I've said for years, black women predominantly stepped up, saved Joe Biden's candidacy, and helped him win in places like Wisconsin, Philadelphia, Atlanta, places that mattered, and Detroit. And here we are again, Gene, where you look, black women, the Congressional Black Caucus, something different now. Again, anecdotally, but this is going to bear itself out in polls, I suspect. Older white people in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, rallying to a man that a lot of them are saying is being unfairly attacked.
This is what I was saying the other day. The underdog aspect, that's back in Joe Biden's favor right now because everybody thinks he's going to lose. There could be disincentive for, say, Trump voters or anyone else that's anti-Biden to go to the polls. Because they could be if the biggest threat is Joe Biden, then they could say, well, he doesn't have a really good chance of winning anyway, so I'm not going to go vote for my candidate because what difference does it make? But then, also, again, to the point about, black women or older white people supporting, it's every block. You lose one block and I think you're out, whether it's the Hispanics, whether it's black women, whether it's white educated women, whatever it is. You lose one of those major voting blocks and it's over. So it's not all dependent on one group like they're trying to portray it.
Look, you and Mika were there that morning in 2020, the morning of the New Hampshire primary, when Joe Biden came on Morning Joe, and he was done, right? He was done. He was finished. He was never going to be president. We all knew it. It was kind of in the air. Nobody quite said that, but that's what was going to happen. It was finished, and then a couple of weeks later, he was the presumptive nominee. I mean, he was on his way. We saw then that Democratic voters can be extremely sort of cold-eyed and pragmatic, and they made a decision led initially by Jim Clyburn and African Americans in South Carolina, but Democrats across the country decided, no, this is the guy. This is our safest choice. This is the guy who can beat Donald Trump. And so they went with Joe Biden, and he beat Donald Trump. Now, past performance does not guarantee future results, but that has been the pattern with Joe Biden. He gets counted out, and he somehow comes back. That's kind of the judgment of a lot of pretty important actors in this play right now, that Biden is still the safest alternative. But again, things can change, and we're kind of still in a day-to-day situation now. One more major slip by Biden, and that could open the floodgates, and that could create all these scenarios that are kind of seem really wild and unlikely, but could unfold. So we'll take it day by day for now.
Yeah, these guys are so long-winded. But anyway, he said something in there about the race and how it changed in 2020. If you guys remember, because I remember, in 2020, the way that the race changed was during the actual voting in the primary when Joe Biden won South Carolina. And it was at that point, I think it was Jim Clyburn or somebody who endorsed him and got the votes in South Carolina that kind of pushed him over the edge. And before that, the reason Joe Biden was doing so poorly is because the field was so spread. But then it was down to him and Bernie Sanders, if you remember. And then right before South Carolina, he gets this big endorsement. And then right after the endorsement, all of the other candidates started dropping out and endorsing him, with the exception of Elizabeth Warren, because she was playing the politic game as well. But everybody else dropped out and supported Joe Biden. They all kind of rallied behind him, and that's what pushed him above in the primary. Now, how he won the election, that's a different conversation. I think there was a lot of fortification. I think there was a lot of last-minute rule changes dealing with the pandemic and everything else that kind of did not favor Donald Trump, let's say. And so there's a lot that goes into all of that as well. So again, though, I think they're trying to build this narrative up like, the party is behind him. These important groups are behind him. They're trying to re-rally the troops and trying to hold firm, trying to just hold the line. Again, like he said, it could just come down to one single slip up. Anything could happen. Joe Biden could slip down the stairs, and then all of a sudden we're stuck with Kamala Harris. It could be that simple. It could be that he goes and gives another speech or has another interview or something else gets leaked, and it's just way worse. And people just come after him even more, and they say, that's it, we've had it, get someone else in. I will note, though, he says we're on a day-to-day basis, but every day that goes by is a less likely chance that Joe Biden is going to step down.
Right, and that's really, Gene just really underlined the greatest concern with those who love Joe Biden but believe he should step down, because there is one more meltdown like we saw debate night, and it starts all over again, and it's all over. And their concern is, what happens if that comes in September? What happens if that comes in October? What happens if it comes on this Thursday? If something like that happens at the press conference, this conversation begins anew. So there is right now there is a bit of a perilous march toward the nomination and beyond.
Yeah, I don't think Joe Biden's going anywhere. That's where I'm at. I don't think he either has to drop dead or something has to happen to make him quit. But it has to be Joe Biden's decision. As long as Joe Biden wants to stay in it, he's going to be in it until the end. I think September is going to be, as long as the September this debate is still happening, I believe it's September 10th is supposed to be the next debate between him and Trump. He said there's a press conference on Thursday. I don't put a lot of weight in that. Again, unless he slips and falls on stage, it's not really a question. I mean, he could stutter and there are going to be people that try to spin it positively. Fox News and everybody else will try to spin it negatively. It really doesn't matter. It's all up to Joe Biden at this point. Interesting to see the people who are coming out in support of Joe Biden, and interesting to see the people who are coming out against Joe Biden. That is interesting. And as long as this conversation continues, it's not looking good for Mr. Biden.